My name is Paul McGavin. I live here in Petaluma, and I've worked carefully with the city to try to get the best local ordinance we can to help us with close proximity microwave radiation antennas. That's what we're up against. These are cell phone towers that are planning to be installed on utility poles and light poles, literally 10 to 20 feet from people's homes. It's a terrible idea. And we worked hard with the city to put together a good local ordinance that would help protect some of the residential zones. I'm here tonight to talk about the fact that we are in trouble now. The Federal Communications Commission has overstepped its bounds, and they passed a terrible ordinance, which is being in lawsuits right now, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And they are essentially trying to shove down the throats of all of the cities across the U.S., the very thing we got a veto of from our own state. We went through 6 months of process with the state. It was a small cell deployment bill, and they wanted to take away from the cities all of their ability to regulate their rights of way. We worked very hard. I was on a team, maybe 10 or 12 people, worked full-time 6 months, and we secured that veto. We worked with our city to be able to get a very good, strong ordinance passed, which we did. And literally, within 2 weeks after passing that ordinance, the FCC passed what they did. It's called FCC-133. You can read it. It's 100 pages. And what they tried to do is redefine all kinds of words to mean things they shouldn't mean. Co-location used to be a tower with an antenna on it already. That doesn't mean that anymore. It just means any piece of public property that the wireless industry desires to put an antenna on. I'm here to tell you we have a public health crisis in Sebastopol, California. We have a perfect experiment of what happens when there's an antenna too close to homes. It's on scientist4wiredtech.com/Sebastopol. I spent 5 weeks showing that page to all of the senators and representatives in Washington, D.C. who would give me time. It is the #1 page on my website. I'm getting 12,000 visits a day. What you'll see there is, even though these towers are compliant with the FCC, we're killing and injuring people there. 5 deaths, 12 illnesses. All preventable by listening and understanding. You do not want antennas low to the ground, in line with windows. You do not want antennas close to people. Where do you want them? 200 feet in the air, where they are right now, and about 1,500 to 3,000 feet away. That is what you want. And so if there's anything that we can impress upon the city to add to their ordinance to protect people more, given that we're under attack by the FCC and the wireless industry, I would strongly recommend that the city respond. Many letters going back to them, and we have a conversation about it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize this was so formal. I thought it was going to be like a different meeting I was at with the Planning Commission about 5G, so I don't have that much prepared, but I just want to say that I work for a charitable fund called Jonas Philanthropies, and we get proposals to fund research and advocacy around different environmental health hazards, and EMF radiation came across my desk about 2 years ago. I just sort of picked it up and started looking at it when my kid was going to Petaluma City Schools, and they had the iPad rollout where they gave an iPad to every child starting in kindergarten. I was concerned about the wireless access points all over the classrooms, and that's when I started reading the huge breadth of research that shows that there are hazards beyond just the thermal heat issues. They're non-thermal hazards, and the thought of right now there are things you can do to protect your family, pretty simple things. School's a little trickier, depends what school you go to. But if you wake up one morning like they did in Santa Rosa to find a giant, and they're really big and unsightly, cell tower on your lamppost, there's not a lot you can do to protect your children from this hazard. And you can ask, well, if it's such a why don't we know more about this? No one's funding this research. I'm one of a small group of funders. After this sort of became not a very popular thing to fund. Who's going to fund it? The FCC, you can look it up. There's a report, Harvard Ethics Review, FCC captured agency. The people who are supposed to be regulating this are the people who are also people who work for industry or have worked for industry. And there's great research. Joel Moskowitz at UC Berkeley is terrific. Deborah Davis, who helped us with secondhand smoking on airplanes, alerted us to that cause. This is her #1 concern. Joel Moskowitz's #1 concern. Martha Herbert at Harvard, there are these terrific scientists out there that are saying, hey, this is really scary. There is no research out there that shows that 5G is safe. In fact, there's a multi-million-dollar federal study that shows that 2G, NTP, the top-of-the-line study that shows that 2G causes cancer in male rats that have exposure, long-term exposure. And I'm not comfortable with this in front of my lamppost, and I'm not comfortable with it in front of any of your lampposts. And cities around the whole country are taking this into their own hands by working on their ordinances. And we happen to have Paul McGavin in our city, and we are so lucky. Because he's a national expert on this issue. I mean, he goes to D.C., self-funded. This is what he's decided to do with his whole life, and he's one of the top go-to people. I mean, I can put you in touch with the lobbyist environmental working group that are interested in this, the people at NRDC that are working on this. Everyone says when I reach out, my favorite scientist, Tracy Woodruff, I can give you, they all say, this is something to pay attention to. This is scary. We can do what we can now. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's good. That means I can give you some good information. I've been working very hard on a particular topic that is relevant to all of Petaluma, and went so far as to work with the state and also to the federal legislators, and I've lobbied hard over the summer 2017. We got a veto of the state's small cell bill. That means that we have local control as a result of that veto. Very good. We can make local decisions. However, we are now getting attacked at the federal level. We knew about that in February of 2017, but we went back and I spent 5 weeks there and got a lot of support for some of the ideas I'm going to talk with you tonight. And I shared with them a lot of good work we did in Sebastopol. Now, I have a site called scientist4wiretech.com, and what that does is it kind of chronicles all the work that we've been doing, and it's a whole group of people. But we put the best information there and the best analysis so you can understand kind of what the issues are. Bottom line is this. Everybody across America wants to have good, fast broadband at good speeds directly to their homes. That's a universal. And we really should have had it by now. I mean, we're pretty late in the game for getting it. Okay, if you look across the world, a lot of other countries have us beat to the punch. All right? This is all not because we don't have the technology. Obviously, we are the ones that create this technology. It's because of the system that we have. And the system is pretty much run by AT&T and Verizon, and those lobbyists go to the legislators to get laws passed to help them make more money. And so there's a digital divide today. We don't feel it so much in town, but boy, the people just west of us, you know, out there in the ranches and things, really tough for them to get internet out there just because the companies aren't willing to go because they won't make enough money, all right? And so the issue here is because we're so dedicated to market-based solutions as opposed to what we used to have, which was, hey, everybody deserves internet, so we're going to make you go do it. You'll make money in the cities, you'll lose money in the country, but you still got to go do it. That's what it should be. That's what it's been for a long time for telephone service and for electricity. But the lobbyists got in the middle of all of that, and they carved out special favors, and so people got left behind. Unfortunately, though, what they have done is they stole a whole bunch of money, and I mean really stole. And we are not talking a little bit of money. We're talking a lot of money, $16 billion. And we have uncovered this because we work with the top telecom analysts in the country, and this guy's worked for 10 or 12 years and filed with the FCC to make sure that the cities understand this, because the cities have a great opportunity to now take a good, hard look at the history of fiber optic installations in the city of Petaluma. And you may find some very surprising things. Here's the basics of it. 1993, we had some movement in telecommunications, even before the 1996 Act. okay? And we had Bill Clinton, Al Gore, information superhighway. Everyone was going to get fast speeds to their home right away. It was all going to happen. It was all promised. A little bait and switch going on, but that's what they promised. And they signed contracts, and they made commitments, and they said they were going to convert everybody from copper to fiber within certain date ranges, and it should have all been done by the year 2000. In order to pay for that, they put charges on the phone bills. Everybody in Petaluma, if you have your old phone bills, now is the time to pull them out and take a look at them, and we should bring them to the city council meeting. You will see there's a $5 to $7 per month charge on the phone bill for the express purpose of upgrading copper lines to fiber optic. We have paid for it since 1994. It's still on landline bills today. They are still collecting the money. What have they done? They say, oh, I'm a holding company. I want to maximize profits. I'm going to treat my state telecommunications utility company, the one that provides the phone services that we're supposed to do those upgrades, as the child we don't like very much. And we're going to have the favored son, and that's our wireless company. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this whole pile of money, even though it's illegal, and we're going to transfer it over there. And then we have a whole bunch of expenses over here. We have our wireless company executive pay, and we got corporate jets, and we got lobbyists. We're going to make these guys pay it. We're going to put it all on the phone company. We're going to make them look really unprofitable. Then we're going to make these guys look really profitable. And everyone's going to buy the story. And we're just going to continue on. And we're going to eventually say, hey, you know what? We're going to stop giving you copper. We're going to turn that off, and we're going to force you over to wireless. And they're doing all of this because as a phone provider, they have to give you business at just and reasonable prices. As a wireless company, completely unregulated. They can soak you for whatever the market will bear. That's what's happening here. So, from 94 to about 97 in California, a whole bunch of fiber optic cable went in the ground. A lot of it. Some of it's right here in Petaluma. Nobody talks about it. It's there. What has happened? Enough time has passed. They've depreciated off the books. It's in the ground. It's not lit up. It's called dark fiber. It is the basis for our real solution here. We just need to do our homework, figure out where the fiber is, make a claim of ownership over it. Take it. It's sitting in our public conduit, our public money paid to put it there. It's not being used because it's one of the pawns in the chess game. What do they want to do? They want to wait for these regulations they passed in September that says, hey, we're going to put small cells everywhere, and no one's going to have a say. We're going to go right in front of your house and your house and your house, and we're going to put them really close. We're going to put them right into your second-story bedroom windows. And you can't do anything about it because we just wrote a bunch of FC regulations. And in order to do that, we got to use fiber. Well, guess what? We're not going to tell everybody. We're going to start using that fiber that we put in the ground a long time ago. They're going to steal it unless we claim it. That is my whole pitch here. Let's do some homework. Let's figure out how much fiber we have. Let's trace the ownership of this. Let's find out if it's an abandoned asset, what can we do with an abandoned asset? I know what I can do at my house with a lot that the city decided that maybe they would put a cul-de-sac on one day, but they never decided to do it. Well, you just talk to any lawyer. I mow that lawn every year. I cut down the weeds every year. I walk past it every time I go to my mailbox. After some time, it's mine. It's no longer the city's. Same thing with this fiber optic cable. If it's sitting in the ground, not being used, in our public conduit, you have claim of ownership. Municipal broadband fiber is really the way to change the economics of the whole small cell game. You have the opportunity to use the fiber, extend it to everybody's houses, not just in the rich neighborhoods, to everybody. And if you want to, you can go out in the hills where they have a digital divide and help those people too. These are all available to cities that turn out and figure out ways to do municipal broadband fiber. What you don't want to do, and what's happening right now in Petaluma, is we have a great ordinance. This is saying we don't want small cells in residential zones. We'd rather have them only in commercial and industrial zones. Very rational, very forward-looking, a very good job done by our city staff and city attorney. These are at odds right now with these FCC regulations. We are in this very tenuous spot. Some cities are saying, oh, we have to do ordinances that are consistent with the FCC regulations. Other cities are saying, no, we don't have to do that. And here's why. Those regulations are actually in a lawsuit. And it's not just a few people who don't like this. This is hundreds of cities across the United States. We have the top attorney, Joseph Van Eaton, from Best and Krieger, arguing this case. I would be very surprised if he lost the case, because it's a huge federal overreach. They are advising, and we believe it's true, you should never align your local ordinance with what the FCC rules are at this stage. You need to wait for the outcome of the federal case before you make any move towards them. That's the smart move for any city. And they're going to say, oh, well, we're going to threaten you, and it might be a big lawsuit by AT&T or Verizon. It may cost you a couple $100,000. Don't buy it. Because here's the deal. The very first thing you do, you go to the judge, you say, hey, judge, all courts are overburdened. You don't want to go through this long lawsuit right now because we have this other lawsuit in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And whatever that suit decides is going to rule in this case anyway. Let's not use court resources. Let's just keep things as they are right now and wait until we hear the outcome of the big suit. Perfect. That's called a stay. We need a stay of these regulations, and we may get it from BBK within 30, 40 days. If we don't, the city itself can effectively do a stay by saying to the wireless industry, look, follow our local rules if you wish. If not, take us to court. It's not going to go through a real lawsuit. It's just going to give you a line of defense to continue to protect the neighborhoods. That's our recommendation. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the 2 minutes. So I just want to cover right now that we are about to get inundated with FCC 18-133. That's the small cell regulations that are actually in conflict with our Petaluma local ordinance. And so what we're asking you to do is please take note that the best place for Petaluma to be in this conflict is to defend your local ordinance. Right now, FCC 18-133 is in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And Joseph Van Eaton, who is the lead telecom attorney for the country, is advising the cities, stay where you are, defend your local ordinances, don't give an inch, because they may get a stay in a matter of 50 or 60 days, which will just wipe them out while the case is proceeding, or they may get them dismissed all completely. What you can do, if you actually get applications for both residential and commercial, is you can deny your residential. And if they take you to court, if the wireless industry takes you to court, it's very easy for you to go to the judge and say, you know, you want to wait. You want to wait until the Ninth Circuit rules on this. So for judicial efficiency, just allow us to put this on hold and wait for the Ninth Circuit. That's your de facto stay right there. And that'll last for 18 to 24 months while BBK does a great job for us and dismisses those regulations. So we just want to provide that information to you. We are in touch with the main attorneys that are making these cases. We're trying to be very close and give this information to Petaluma so they know how to position themselves here. But some cities, unfortunately, are knuckling under and changing their ordinances to be in concert with 18-133, but we have great legal citations to give you to show you how you can defend against that. All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Harry Lehman, followed by Anthony Tussler.
Good evening. Thank you. Most of all, thank you for the fact that you've listened on this issue, which is the 5G issue previously. Paul asked me to come up and speak to you on the questionable idea that I had something that would be sufficiently educational that you'd actually have, further data from it instead of just listening to me, which could put anybody to sleep. So rather than subjecting you to my well-known verbosity at length, what I've done is prepare a letter to you, which is going to be handed to your city attorney. And that letter is a cover letter that deals with the recent developments in the science. And it includes a letter which was submitted to the County of Marin on the 22nd of February, which is the best letter that I've managed to write in my 40 years of trial practice. I want to say it again, and maybe it'll be a bad letter in your eyes, but it's the best I've been able to do in 40 years. It's my single best piece. It happens to include a letter from Dr. Galom, who's a senior professor of medicine at the University of California, San Diego School of Medicine. She, in turn, puts her own position forward and then cites 360 different peer-reviewed studies showing the damage that occurs from this radiation, which in this instance actually is not really 5G, it's densified 4G. You probably understand already the National Institutes of Health, National Toxicology Program, ended its program final report on November 2nd, 2018, clearly establishing the causal relationship between this radiation and cancer. So I'll hand that over, but you'll find that it's a very detailed compendium. I want to talk to you briefly about liability. Some lawyers are going to come to you and say, oh my God, what's going to happen? The FCC is going to come and get you. That's not at all settled. It's not at all settled they've got that right. It's in the Ninth Circuit. Those applications shouldn't be granted until that matter has been adjudicated in the Ninth Circuit. Finally, and somewhat more difficult initially to see, in terms of avoiding litigation exposure, your best bet is to say no completely.
I've mentioned this before, but if there were child care here, if you need someone to do it, I have 2 master's degrees and I'm fingerprinted and I could show movies in a room and you'd get a lot more families, and that seems like a good way to increase civic participation. Okay, so on April 1st of this year, there's an article in Wired magazine. Susan Crawford is a Harvard law professor. It's all about 5G and potential health hazards of 5G and why we need to look at this. I became aware of the health hazards of EMS radiation when every kid in Petaluma City Schools was given an iPad starting in kindergarten. That's why I pulled my kid. That's why over 50 families that I know pulled their kids from the district. If you want to know why the district's losing money and losing people, it might be because we're looking for lower EMF spaces for our children. I didn't want to know or care about this. At least what I know with my phone is I can put it on airplane mode and I'm fine. If you put a mini cell tower outside of my window on my lamppost, it's going to be beaming my child 24/7 with radiation that we now know causes cancer. I wish I didn't know this, but I do. $25 million NTP study showed that 2G causes cancer, and that came out last year. So what is 5G going to do? We don't know. That's the problem. Senator Blumenthal just made a public statement about how we need to know what it does before we consider blanketing the population with it. And so I'm just begging you to really take Paul McGavin's comments seriously. He's a national leader in this effort. With my work, I have access as a funder of scientific studies to top scientists who are looking at this, Harvard, at UC Berkeley, all over, and I can put you in touch with any of them if you have specific questions about the health and safety ramifications. But the main point is the FCC will say it's safe based on some bogus 1996 standards that looked at thermal effects. Now we know it's not about heat, it's about non-thermal effects. It's about the skin, it's about what it does to the brain. So please educate yourself and do whatever you can to keep your citizens safe. Thank you.
Thank you.